Alright, so Murata has made quite a few changes to the last 3 chapters that have been released in chapters 122, 23, and 24, with the most changes coming in chapter 123. And he mainly did this to have the transition between the chapters flow better, as well as having the chapters just resemble the original webcomic better. Like, he's added in new panels that are just recreations of the original panels from the webcomic. And I'm going to go over pretty much all of the changes. Maybe I'm going to miss 1 or 2 in this video, but for the most part, I just want to talk about every single one and then explain the significance that they have, as well as the canon that they kind of change in a way. So let's get into it. So let me start with chapter 122 first, because it has actually 2 changes to it. It has a new change which happens at the end, and then it has an older change which happened like a month ago, and I just want to bring it up just in case anybody's unaware of this change. So in the original chapter 122, we saw Saitama and Flashy Flash like running in circles around the Monster Association, pretty much just confused by the layout of it. And then we had some comical interaction through that, and then it led into the big expositional dump that we got on the history of the S-Class and the formation of everything. And then it was changed, like I said, like maybe like a month ago, to Saitama and Flashy Flash like busting through the walls. Instead of just playing by the rules and just going through the tunnels, they're just going through the walls, and then they eventually come into like this bathroom that the Monster Association apparently has. And you see like a monster like sitting on the toilet reading the newspaper. And Saitama's like, "You there, take us to your boss after you're done pooping." And then Flashy Flash says, "I'll only wait 30 seconds. So that was funny. You know, adding just some levity to the chapter, I suppose. Maybe it didn't originally have enough and just one wanted to supplement it with some. But also the new change at the end of chapter 22 is basically like they just removed the final panel of Gums like overcoming Pig God and him on the ground like struggling, and they just change it to like a black panel, and they just add the original text to that, because that's how the original webcomic plays out. And it also allows it to transition into 123, picking up with Gums like having Pig God in his mouth. Now, another thing that unfortunately changes is the removal of Pig God's abilities exposition from the beginning of chapter 123, which is odd because it was like pretty important, and it was the most depth that Pig God has ever gotten in the series by far. Now, does this mean that it's going to be removed forever? I don't think so. Maybe Murata decided, and one possibly, that they want to add it in at a different point in the series, like maybe in a future upcoming chapter, maybe when the battle between Pig God and Gums continues, or just when we get more Pig God, or maybe they're going to like shoehorn it into an old chapter, possibly. Murata hasn't said anything about that as far as I know, but thankfully I do have all of that exposition and info on Pig God saved, so I can make a video about that in case anyone was curious or just wasn't able to read it in time, because it is important. And I suppose they removed it because maybe they just felt it didn't fit in with the chapter, like it was kind of just out of place, because it does just start off with them explaining Pig God's abilities, and then it goes into the S-Class getting beat down and their struggles and everything, and then it doesn't really focus on Pig God after that. But anyway, the next panel that's added to chapter 123 is what I was talking about earlier with the original webcomic panels just getting re-added and updated for the manga, and this is one of them. So we see Saitama, and he's basically just getting narrated, because it says, "In reality, it wasn't the first time that humanity had made contact with a threat of this scale," referring to the Monster Association, and then it being the first time that it had made contact with a threat like this, referring to like either Boris's invasion or just all of the really powerful dragon level monsters that Saitama had fought in the past. And then it further says like, "But as long as he remained indifferent about narrating his combat service, nobody would have any way of knowing." So it's basically talking like Saitama has saved the world from like super powerful monsters that are comparable to the power of like the Cadres and whatnot, but obviously he doesn't go around boasting and bragging about what he's done and what he's accomplished, so no one would really ever know like that they have been in danger with like a Monster Association level threat before. And the panel of Saitama is like him tapping his foot impatiently, still waiting for the monster to like finish up in the bathroom. Pretty funny continuing that sequence. But then we get more of the, you know, revised webcomic panels when we see Sitch, and it shows him when he's like, yeah, he has confidence in the S-Class strike team taking down the Monster Association, mainly because Tatsumaki is participating. But then we get like one of the most interesting additions to this chapter, and just in the series, pretty much in my opinion, because we see that in this panel, it's the Ancient King getting destroyed, because it says like she is a being that nothing in the world could hope to defeat in a frontal attack, rather than the S-Class Rank 1 Blast, who does not carelessly stand on center stage. She is treated as the Association's final weapon. So yeah, we're getting some Blast name drop there, which is always fun, but it's like letting us know that Blast doesn't really do anything, and then if anybody really wants to have a shot of realistically taking down stuff, it's going to be Tatsumaki. So she's kind of like the interim Rank 1 hero, is more or less what they're trying to say here. But anyway, let's go back to the Ancient King, because in the webcomic, we just see like a dinosaur T-Rex type monster originally getting destroyed, but here Murata, the little clever guy he is, added in the Ancient King. So I guess this means that the Ancient King is like canon now, because that was always up for debate before. I actually made a whole video about him and like everything about him, and one of the main themes about that video was like, is he canon, is he not? Did one have anything to do with the creation of him, because one was close to the production of season 1, so did he create him, did he not? But I don't think that really matters anymore, because we're literally seeing him in the manga here. So I guess that means that he is now canon, because of course one had to supervise this, I suppose, right? So I guess that's it. And that's pretty interesting, because it's like we're seeing an event in the manga that has only happened in the anime. So like that's weird. I don't like, not too many series do stuff like that, so I think that's pretty fun. But anyway, we got new panels here and there of like Tatsumaki figuring out where Gero Gero's human form is, and her like pointing her finger guns at the ground and like pulling them out, like come join the party. And then there's new like panels of like her eyes being like all creepy and dark, as well as like Gero Gero's eyes being the same way. But before I go any further, let's just talk about the gigantic new panel that we're getting, and it's that these monster things that Gero Gero has in like these gigantic tanks. This kind of reminds me of like the high-end Nomus from My Hero. But anyway, she says that like not even the monsters know where the real me is located. This is a good plan. I can prepare a new puppet. So I'm sure a lot of people when they first saw this thought like, oh my god, this is the new Orochi, because I thought that at first before I saw the translated text. I was like, oh my god, does this mean there's going to be like a new Orochi, or is this like some kind of thing for Orochi to transfer into? But given that she says she could prepare a new puppet, I suppose that these monsters that we're seeing in these tanks are just like the replacements for like the Gero Gero puppet. You know, like the thing that we saw before the Tatsumaki ripped apart. Basically, Gero Gero's identity before we found out that it was this sumptuous lady with the glasses. But are we going to see these things come out of these tanks and fight? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, this is kind of like a Chekhov's gun scenario, but at the same time, I don't feel like it really has to come to fruition, nor will it. Because, like, I don't know, like, what can they really do? Because if they're just Esper puppets, it's like they're really going to pose no more of a threat than the original Gero Gero did. Now, maybe they just come out and it's just another thing for Tatsumaki to, like, rip apart to, like, I don't know, buy her more time or something. That could be the case here, but I don't really think they're going to pose any kind of threat or do any kind of damage or anything like that. Now, let me throw a crazy theory out there that has no bearings to it, but maybe Orochi will have something to do with these guys. Like maybe Orochi, if he is still alive, which chances are that he's not, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but maybe he somehow uses these guys and like morphs with them or something and then comes back using that. I don't know. It's, you know, it happens in battle manga and stuff. That's something that happens, and maybe it can happen in here. No, Orochi hasn't shown any abilities to do that so far, but I'm just putting it out there that, you know, maybe there's some kind of purpose for these guys other than just getting trashed by Tatsumaki in the next chapter. And also, Murata decided to, like, randomly and quietly increase the bust size of Gero Gero, but not even that dramatically. It's just like, I don't know, like half an inch more. I don't know why he did this. It's so subtle that I'm surprised anybody really picked up on it. I mean, of course, I mean, I'm just as eyes on as the rest of you guys, but some of you guys are really like examining this stuff to the full extent, because like it's so subtle that I'm surprised you guys were able to pick up on that. But he did change it. Why did he? I don't know. I guess he wasn't satisfied with the size of them. They're already massive, they're already way bigger than what they need to be. So I guess he just felt like they needed to be bigger, because why not? I just hope that he increases the other end of the spectrum, like he's got the top part big, now increase the bottom part. But anyway, we're going into chapter 124, and he changed it the way that I thought he was going to change, because at the end of chapter 123, we saw the sequence of Fubuki deflecting Rover's blast and then saying, if you didn't block this, you'd be disintegrated. You owe me one. And then we actually see that happening again, midway through chapter 124, and I was like, okay, well, there's kind of like a continuity error here. Not just with this sequence lining up, but also like Fubuki's dress getting damaged, which doesn't happen in 124 anyway. But anyway, he fixed that. He took all of that out, and now at the end of 123, we just see Bang and Bomb avoiding Rover's blast. It looks like last second they're jumping out of the way, and that perfectly leads into 124 now, because it just follows up with them successfully getting out of the way of his blast, and then it just goes, accordingly with the rest of the chapter, and then everything else makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the revisions to chapters 122, 23, and 24. Let me know what you guys thought about this one. What do you think about Giro's buffs, her improvements? Are they necessary? I don't know. What do you think is going to happen with her new puppets? But aside from that, if you liked it, guys, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day.